What's up, everyone? Jason Brown here, the king of programming. We are talking about the conjugate method today and why it might be a beneficial system of training for you to utilize. We're going to start right now. All right, guys, today we're talking about the conjugate method. I have written about the conjugate method extensively. I would tell you, I think the conjugate method for me has done just incredible things for my career as a coach. I started programming with the conjugate system as the base of my programming online back in 2015. Seems like forever ago now, but it is quite a while ago. And the base of the programming that I was writing was based on the conjugate method. And I got exposed to the conjugate method as a young coach back in 2004 at the facility I was training at. And was really able to learn the nuances of that system. And a lot of stuff was learned in the trenches. I think that anything I'm gonna talk about here with you guys today is things that you might understand, but you might understand even better if you get in the trenches yourself and do them. So with that said, we're gonna break this down, and I'm gonna break this down in the simplest way I can. Now, I have a lot of articles on this. So I'm gonna link one of my articles in the show notes. Check that out and be able to maybe see it on paper and read it might help you. But I do have a lot of people that still don't understand this system of training. And to me, I guess it kind of is baffling a little bit, because I think that this system is actually a lot simpler than people make it out to be and has a lot of application beyond just powerlifters. And again, a lot of my programs, almost all of my programs, are conjugate based, if you will. So to start things off, let's talk about what is the conjugate system, where did it come from, what made it popular, and we can go from there and break down the various elements to this. So first and foremost, anyone that knows anyone knows that Louie Simmons made the conjugate system popular. And the conjugate system as a whole, by definition, is essentially joining together multiple qualities of fitness within the same cycle or week of training, if you will. I think the word cycle is something that I like to kind of stay away from, because with conjugate, we are working a lot more qualities of fitness at any given time, as opposed to working a linear base, a block style cycle where we potentially focus on one quality for certain lengths of time in hopes that we peak for an event. I've talked about linear periodization. I'm not here to talk about that today and tell you the drawbacks of it, but I think that the conjugate method does a lot of things far better than linear periodization does, and for one main reason, and that is the ability to adjust based on you. Not based on me, not based on anyone else, but based on you. How are you making sense of what is in the training? How are you adjusting percentages or RPs based on stress in your life? There's a lot of things to contend with. Now, other things that we think about with this system is that compliance is one of those things that is largely important to the results you get. No shit, right? Like, the more you do a program, the better results you get. Not rocket science, we know that. But when you do the same thing, block style, where it's over and over repetitive and you're working one quality for a length of time, it tends to get very monotonous. And a lot of times people burn out and they're like, I just don't want to do that anymore. And I think that when people burn out, if you will, it can mean a lot of things. It could mean they're overtrained, but it could also mean that they're psychologically not wanting to do whatever they're doing anymore. Maybe they don't enjoy it. So one of the things that the conjugate system has going for it is that there is a lot of variability in terms of qualities of fitness we're training within a given week, which gives people a break. It gives people just kind of the mental, like, all right, I'm not lifting heavy all the time. I'm not doing percentages all the time. So there is a lot of things that make this a system that is attractive to people that like constant change. Now, I do think there is a lot to constant change. We do need to do some repetition. But as a whole, conjugate is joining together multiple qualities of fitness, and that's what it is. Now, if you think about Louie Simmons and what he did for the system, he made it in the sense of helping powerlifters, helping strength and power athletes improve their numbers, get stronger, be more explosive. And because of that, he used different methods to get there. Now, we have things like submaximal effort work, which is essentially doing heavier work, maybe multiple repetition maximums with a big lift. We also have things like the maximal effort method, which is building to a true 1 repetition max in any given lift. Okay, so those are two methods that are an integral part of the system. Now, when we think about on the other ends of the spectrum, the force velocity curve, we think about force, we think about velocity. We've got things like dynamic effort training, which is more bar velocity, moving fast, being explosive, explosive strength method, doing plyometrics. Those are things that make up the core of this system. Now, what's in between? So we've got heavy lifting, we've got speed lifting, We've got explosive work. What else goes in to make up those gaps? Well, lo and behold, the stuff that I just mentioned makes up only about 20% of this system. The other 80% of those strength days is built on accessory exercises, or as Louie Simmons used to like to say, special exercises. These are geared towards many things, like adding lean tissue, improving limiting factors, lagging muscle groups, improving things like muscular imbalance, bringing up where you might be weak. Maybe you're weak in a specific point of your bench press. Maybe you're weak in a specific point of your squat. If you weren't, then you wouldn't be human. Everyone has limiting factors, and these are ways that we address it with our accessory work. So these are things that we can do to strategically bring up these weak points. Now, this is really a core part of the system, but at the base of everything with the conjugate method is our GPP, or general physical preparedness. It's our foundation, guys. It's everything. And there are a lot of ways to skin the cat with all of this stuff I'm mentioning, but at its baseline level, if we think about our ability to recover between sessions, our ability to handle the volume of, say, our dynamic effort training, or maybe our special exercise work, maybe we're doing reverse hypers for higher volume, there's a lot of things that we need to contend with. And without that base, there's a disconnect. So we need that base of fitness. All right, guys, if you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate having you here and subscribing to my content. If any of this information resonates with you and you want more free value, I would love the chance to support you on my weekly newsletter. We put out a ton of free content. Myself and my wife, Danny, put this out. We write it every single week to curate a ton of great stuff for you guys. The link is in the show notes, and we'll see you on the inside. So let's take a step back here and just kind of look at what this system is. If we just look at kind of a week view, Monday might be our maximal effort lower body day. We have a main lift, let's say it's a squat pattern, and then we follow that up with our accessory or special exercises. So in a very simplistic view, we might have glute ham raises, we might have some single leg work, we might have some reverse hypers, and some abdominal work. That's day one of the system, where we have maximal effort squat. Day two might be our GPP work. So this might be sled drags, loaded carries, longer duration, 60 to 90 seconds of both of those. It might be some higher volume band work. You can even mix in some zone 2 cyclical work, which is what we do in our program. I don't think they're doing a ton of zone 2 at Westside Barbell, at least from when I was there years ago. I didn't see them doing any of that stuff, but I do see them doing things that surprised me, like pulling the sled for a mile, doing wheelbarrow walks for a mile, walking in their belt squat for 5-minute sets. We're talking about big guys that are moving ungodly amounts of weight that are doing endurance work. So if that doesn't come as a shock to you, it should, because I think at face value, most people would say, oh, those guys are definitely not doing any endurance work. They are, because without that base of fitness, it's harder to recover, it's harder to handle volume. And of course, there is the physiological aspects to it, like replacing ATP when we're doing things like dynamic effort method, and we need to recover at a certain amount of time between sets. Now, if you translate this to other sports, we can certainly get more specific and play to the specificity of a sport, but at its baseline level, the GPP aspect is an integral part of this program. So don't sleep on that stuff. And I think I've got several videos on GPP, check that out, but it's probably gonna be another video in the near future. If you wanna see a video on GPP, let me know in the comments. So moving forward, we've got our maximal effort lower day, squat emphasis with our accessory work. We've got our GPP day. And then Wednesday, we hit maximal effort for the upper body, maybe a press variation. Again, same template or style as Monday, if you will. Certainly some strategies you can use in there. You can use some supersets. You can use some different things that might align better with that session. But I want to keep this at more of a baseline level so you guys can understand the system. So we've got 3 days figured out here. Day 4, you could probably guess, more like day 2. Okay, so more GPP, longer sled duration work. And again, this is where I, in my own conjugate program, mix in more cyclical, more mixed modality style conditioning for longer durations. I don't work with powerlifters, I work with general population people that are just like me. They want to look good, feel good, they want to still be athletic. You can do that with this program and do it incredibly well. So we mix in some longer duration, zone 2, where we're keeping our heart rate in the 60-70% range. And we might mix in sleds. All my conjugate programs have sleds. So if you want to do a conjugate program, you better get yourself a sled. But the sled is an integral part of building that capacity, going for longer durations with lighter loads, and it just fits incredibly well. There's no axial loading, just a ton of benefits to that. And I've got content on sled work and the benefits of it if you want to check that out. So that's what day 4 would look like. And then day 5, probably guessed it, dynamic effort. We get into more speed work, more bar velocity, more plyometric work, which is explosive strength, where we might be doing a plyo, a speed squat, a speed pull deadlift, or even a power clean, if you will. And then we hit our accessory exercises. So that's day 5 of the program. And then day 6, we get into our dynamic effort for the upper body. Again, plyo, push-up, speed, bench press, our accessory work to end things off, maybe some abdominal work. Again, a lot of ways to go with this. And then day 7 would likely be an active recovery day where we're resting or we're doing some walking, getting some steps in, even some weighted vest walking. That's one of the things I love to do on a conjugate-based program is go walk for an hour with a 20 to 40 pound vest on. And that is a really complete program, guys. I know I'm trying to make this as simplistic as I can because so many of you said I still don't get it. Well, if we just look at the template of this, how this is laid out, we've got heavy, GPP, heavy, GPP, speed, speed, recovery. That's 7 days. That's 7 days of programming, and that is done in a way that is going to cover all your bases. If strength and power is your goal, this program will do it. You'll also build work capacity because you are not sleeping on that stuff. Now, if we think about how this is structured in terms of duration, that week of training, we can duplicate that over 3 weeks. And why 3 weeks? Well, our speed work for dynamic effort, our speed pull deadlift, our speed box squat, our speed bench is typically done in a 3-week wave fashion. This is something that Louie made popular where he would use 40% or 50% on the bar, and there's some room there for adjusting this based on your own muscle fiber type. But needless to say, using a lighter load on the bar and then using accommodating resistance to make up the additional percentage, you can wave that for 3 weeks. And then on that 4th week, you start with new variations. So with my conjugate programming, I like to do 3-week waves where you'll see the same variations, you'll see subtle differences from week to week. And a lot of times the progression is built in because we're doing the same movements. We might be going the higher end of the rep scheme or using slightly heavier loads. But overall, this is a very easy way and a very clean way to structure a 3-week block of this training. And then on that 4th week, we start new variations, okay? So just to recap, we've got our template here that's made up of 2 heavy days, 2 speed days, 2 GPP days, so 6 days per week. So you might be thinking, well, what if I only have 4 days a week? You could certainly focus on the strength element if that's your goal for the next, say, 9 to 12 weeks. And at some point, you might want to think about waving some of that GPP work back in there. Now, let's say you want more balance. You could go hit your 2 heavy days and hit your 2 GPP days, and you've got a pretty well-rounded program. Of course, you're missing out on the speed work, but there are ways to get that stuff in to maybe your warm-up sequence. So the more and more I talk about this sitting here, the more and more variables that we have, the more and more things that we could potentially bring into this discussion. But for you guys watching this video, I want you to take away one thing, is that this is a very well-designed system that can accomplish a multitude of goals for people that have a lot of experience, people that have been training for a while. It can allow you to get better without burnout. And that's what I love about this. So if you're someone that's been training 5+ years, maybe you've hit the plateau, this might be a good direction to go. And I love the fact that it's less rigid than, say, a linear style of training. Not to say linear is not going to get you results. I've used linear so many times throughout my career and have gotten people great results with it. This is more practical long-term for most people. And that's why I use it exclusively. Even my full body programs are technically conjugate, where we're working on multiple qualities within a given week. And it's structured so well. So when you see some of the program reviews I do and you're like, wait, we're doing this, we're doing that, there's no structure. That's the best thing about conjugate is you have a very clear and concise structure that you can plug these things in. So you guys can, after leaving this video, hopefully take this information, plug this stuff in. I've got a template to what I just mentioned in the show notes. So check that out, it's free. Take that stuff, move it to a document, and start plugging in your own exercises. You can start using the conjugate method and get great results. And remember, guys, till next time, results are king.